Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stratosphere Studio. I'm your host, Bill Whittle, and here we are with another perfect launch. Good to see everybody. Always need to get a sound check on this because I have to move it back and forth, and I want to make sure that we're not blowing anything away. So, how's that looking? How's that sounding? Everything good? Yeah? Five? Yeah? Okay. Say what? Hope everybody's doing well. It's good to be here. Bunch of things to talk about. It's good for now, says Dave Big Booty. Filtrek 5x5. He's an audio engineer. He ought to know. Anyway, here we are. So good to see everyone. It is the 20th of February. Couple things to chat about here before we take some questions. First of all, we, as many of you know, we roll a pre-roll show for our Twitch viewers. We don't record it because it would completely, not only kill the live stream, it would also, get us all kinds of copyright issues and stuff. But since we don't record it, stream it out on Twitch, we get to see it a lot. And the last thing we roll before we do the Stratosphere Studio show is the opening theme from Star Trek. And I was looking at that opening credits from Star Trek, and I thought, it's hard to put my finger on it for the longest time. I think Doomcock pointed it out eventually. But one of the reasons that show is just so magic is because in my opinion is because of the star field, and that was always like my favorite part of Star Trek was just watching the stars go by, and yet faster they go, faster you're going. Thought it was fantastic, loved it. And then I realized that really, pretty much since then, everything is in a wormhole now. I'm not aware of any other science fiction show since Star Trek that showed the stars as you move past it. It's either Star Wars has the wormhole, you have the whoosh thing through the wormhole, and then they put the Enterprise in a wormhole when Jar Jar Abrams did the reboot, and I oh wow, wormhole. It's not the same. It's just not the same. I just love it. One of the things you can do with Space Engine, by the way, which we've talked about many times on this show, is that in Space Engine you can just point it and start going faster and faster and faster, and the amount of speed you have to travel to see any motion on the stars is crazy. It's like I can't even remember. I want to say it's 200-300 times the speed of light before you get even any kind of a shift. So I don't know. I just thought I'd mention that. I just always liked that so much. Always liked that Starfield, and Enterprise is cruising along. It's got the little space sonar going, but it's not sonar really. It's radar or sensors. We know. It was fantastic. Worth noting that Gene Roddenberry said Lucas stole the warp drive effect. Yeah, maybe with that push or something. And by the way, we said here we go from Nick, 3 a.m. here in Croatia, and I'm waiting for my favorite conservative to start streaming. Well, thank you for tuning in until he shows up anyway, Nick. Love you, Bill. Sending you greetings from overseas. Never fails to blow my mind, but thank you anyway. So there's that. And then just last night to wash the taste out of this red terror stuff out of my mouth, which I will give you a small flavor of in a minute. I just happened to stumble on, I actually was looking for an episode, just to see an episode on TV of The Odd Couple, which if you're a certain age, you know that da-da, 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 you either know it or you don't. And I hadn't seen The Odd Couple, or almost since The Odd Couple was on. I hadn't seen an episode of The Odd Couple in 30 years maybe. That's one of the best things about YouTube. And so I took a look at like a best of, and not only had I forgotten how funny it was, but I'll tell you what really, really shocked me. And that is how thin everybody was. I remember Jack Klugman, being Oscar Madison, and I thought he must have been a relatively, he looks like a gymnast. Felix Unger, looks like a gymnast. Tony Randall. It's unbelievable how fit everybody was in the 70s. It's really shocking. You really need to do it. And then because of that, one link led to another, and I took a look at the best of Taxi, which is another show I loved. And again, it is really genuinely shocking to see how trim everybody is. Tony Danza and Jeff Conway are like you guys look like I said, look like gymnasts. Mary Lou Henner is just really trim. Judd Hirsch, who I always remembered being a little not paunchy, he was just always the older guy. He is like flat stomach. Even Danny DeVito doesn't look fat, and God, what a brilliant, just what a brilliant piece of work that was. Airtech, he says, is before the fast food wave at Reverend Jim too, and I don't know if it was the fast food rave. Barbara Durant says it's a high fructose corn syrup. I really think that's what it is, because I remember, there was certainly fast food in the 70s. I used to go to McDonald's a couple times a month. And of course, we get less exercise now. There's no question about that. But these are older actors. These are not. Tony Danza was real fit, but you just look at them, and even compared to like the 90s with Friends, they look really just skinny. They look so fit. I couldn't believe how fit everybody looked. It really is just one shot after another. So, oh my God. So something's happening. Something's happening to the food. I've heard, of course, that high fructose corn syrup's put in everything because it enhances the flavor of everything. I've heard it's in steak, chicken. Ay caramba. But something is gone really wrong, and it is. I've heard a couple of people talk, and they did nothing but eat hot dogs and candy bars and all of that stuff, and they don't. What I'm trying to say is, we've taken 30 years to get as fat as we are as a society, and that's a boiling the frog slowly kind of thing. But honestly, when you get in the time machine and look back to 40 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, it's just astonishing. And clearly, it's not a question of one or two people or let it slack. I don't even think it's a question of people eating a lot more. I think it's mostly just the calorie load in this food is incredible. And I remember talking about when I got over COVID, I hadn't eaten anything in probably 11, 12 days. And then when I I think the first thing I tried to drink was cranberry juice, and it was just like, just sugar and everything. But it's crept back in, so now I'm back on my sugar metabolism. So anyway, Dave Big Booty says the hippies at Woodstock are all ripped like marathon runners. There's a lot of things that really needs to be looked at and adjusted. Ed Smith wants to know, did you watch WKRP in Cincinnati? Yeah, I watched all of them. And I had just I probably watched 25, 30 minutes of The Odd Couple, some of their best scenes. Those are highlights, but and about, I don't know, half an hour and 45 minutes on Taxi. And those shows are really, really, really well written. They're really, really well written. They're very clever, and they're very moving. Before they did a very special episode kind of thing that made everything sort of, maudlin and kind of, overly sentimental. The pilot for Taxi has Alex Rieger, Judd Hirsch's character, driving down to Miami to see his daughter, who he hasn't seen in 15 years. She's moving from South America to Portugal. He goes to Miami International Airport, which looks like shot was like from 1962. And they're in Miami International Airport, and he's got about 7 or 8 minutes with her at the gate, and it's like, this is genuinely moving. I mean, it wasn't mawkish. It was just good. Bart Stretcher said the 70s TV present a skewed sample. Maybe skinny was the style. It was, well, whether it was the style or not, it was not a skewed sample. TV will represent TV, well, at least network TV, which is pretty much gone now, but that has to kind of represent its audience because you're trying to track. If you were to run a show today with people that, then you would not only lose a lot of audience, you would have the lunatics descending in force. So it was just, people were much thinner then, and not just thinner kids. They just stayed thinner, and I am trying to knock 7-8 pounds off, and it's practically impossible. So anyway, it was just striking. Anyway, so a couple things, and I'll try and get as many questions done as possible. And again, I kind of need to keep it relatively brief tonight, but I'll tell you what happened since we spoke last. I have been working on, as you know, this series for Daily Wire, and it has been a bear. And the episode 6 that I had finished and turned in somewhere around Wednesday or Thursday of last week. Bill, show us your shirt. Okay, fine, there you go. It's all it's got like a mirror on it. So I'd finished episode 6 and turned it in, and I'd finished the Red Terror. Episode 6 was the Red Terror, and I basically ended with something like, so Lenin, turned his, unleashed Dzerzhinsky and his Cheka, and he, they went out into the country, with mines